Hello witches and welcome back to Activist Twitch, where we discuss witchcraft and activism, and today tarot and pride. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and today's video is indeed gonna be about 10 tarot decks that are diverse enough that I thought to present to you for Pride Month, June 2024. This video is indeed inspired by Tarot Magpie, Sylvie.
I would wallpaper my entire house in this. Isn't it so yummy? It's June. It's Pride Month. There's so much in this deck. Gender has nothing to do with it. It's great. It's rainbows and butterflies.
Who is one of my latest YouTube crushes, and I saw them do a video like this and I was like, yes, I can do that as well, even if I don't have necessarily the energy to do more. Also, side note, Sylvie has these two amazing tarot zines that you can get on Etsy, and you download them and then you print them yourself. And if you're not dyslexic and you print them on white, they actually have amazing colors. I completely suggest you to go and get yours. I print them on yellow because I'm dyslexic and that's the only paper that I have around. Also, they have an amazing discount for Pride Month, which I'm going to follow. How am I going to follow that? Thank you for asking. I never talk about it much, but I do have an Etsy shop, and the main thing of my Etsy shop is to import indie tarot decks mainly to the UK that weren't previously in the UK, so that people can buy them without the exorbitant custom import charges or the postage. And let's say that this video is sponsored by a Coven of 2, because I'm gonna show you 3 of these decks that are actually on my store on Etsy, so if you'd like to get them on Etsy, you're also supporting me. Thank you. If you'd like to support me just by a donation, whether it's monthly or one-off, you can check out my Ko-fi for that. And on my Ko-fi, you also can get a tarot reading with me, Italian style. The low-income option starts at £5. If you support me there, thank you so very much. And all my profits there, for the foreseeable future, go in support of Cucci's to Gaza, who are part of the mutual aid groups in support of Palestinian people and trying to help them evacuate to Egypt. So there you go. The Millennial Tarot is the first deck that I'm going to show you for Pride Month, which I realized afterwards is actually less diverse than I had the perception it to be. I'm a millennial myself, so I am kind of biased, I guess, on it. It comes with a lot of avocados, as you can tell. This is the second edition of the indie version. It's soon to be a mass market. And so I'm not necessarily a huge fan of AI decks. In fact, I am not at all, because AI is usually based on art that has been scrapped for years around the web from artists and steal their style without their consent. I didn't realize that this was an AI deck. But this deck was made, I think, in 2020, so as you can tell, the quality of the AI is very low. Apparently then there was a lot of Photoshop done to it. It's the only concession that I have ever done to AI art, and also because I discovered that it was AI afterwards. I'm showing it because, again, as a millennial, kind of like it. And it tries to be diverse. The Knight of Fields, which is the Suit of Cups, is ally, and the Page of Fields is coming out. Although, as you can tell, none of this is actually a flag of anything, AI. So it tries, and I like that. I think it's gonna come out mass market this autumn, so that's also gonna be a thing. I think actually on a Coven of 2 I have the last few copies of this indie edition. I think that the mass market will be smaller. The point of this deck was actually to be as big as an iPhone, which again, I kind of love. Give me the bigger the better for what concerns decks. Not only, but decks we're talking about, so the bigger the better in case of decks here. Let's just say that. I really like it. I used to read on it for my friends. As you can tell, the funny thing is all the suits are called something very millennial, so vibes is wands, swag is pentacles, and every card has a keyword to deliver the meaning of the card in millennial jargon. So the 10 of Pentacles is generational wealth, which, you know, it kind of makes sense with the original meaning. It's very liberally inspired by Rider-Waite Smith, but none of the imagery is actually necessarily plucked from Rider-Waite Smith immediately. So yeah, if you want something very original, this is that kind of thing. The Teletherapist. 10 of Swords becomes a 10 of Thoughts. I can't even feel you. It's very inspired by the jargon of America, so the US. As a European millennial, there are some of these cards that don't quite make sense for me. The Soul Cyclist is the star, and I can't quite say that I have an understanding of what that would be supposed to be. Yeah, Soul Cyclist, not quite sure. But it's pretty. I like how much it makes fun of itself. So if you find it fun as well, and you'd like to support my shop, you find it on a Coven of 2. And for Pride Month, I'll do a discount. I was very inspired by Sylvie for that. Sylvie, I think, has a 28% discount as a big FU to Section 28. And I think I'll do something very similar to that. Thank you for the inspiration, Sylvie, as always. This next one is actually gonna be a mass market, but I'm gonna feature it soon on a Coven of 2. Actually, by the time that this video is out, it's gonna be on a Coven of 2. And it's the Luna edition of the Ethereal Vision Tarot. The Ethereal Vision Tarot, the normal version, is actually the first tarot deck that I bought for myself, because I don't know if you notice around here, there's a lot of Art Nouveau. Like, the background is actually an Art Nouveau jigsaw of Alphonse Mucha. These as well, it's my thing. And because the art of Matt Hughes is very Alphonse Mucha inspired, more than the Tarot Mucha, if you ask me, I got the original one, and then when the Luna edition was available, I got this one as well. Because it tries to be a tiny bit more diverse, which, bless you, Matt, you really are trying, and I am starved for representation, so I will take anything that is given to me. I inserted this because by the end of this, I put them at the side. One, we have the World card, which is representing fatness in a beautiful, delicate, and elegant way, which is not usually how fatness is being represented. And eventually, we'll make a video about it, because we have been working on it for years at this point. There is something about fat bodies that intersects with the experience of queer people, and specifically, with my experience and Raven experience, we have noticed how many overlaps of experiences there are between fat bodies and the trans experience and trans bodies. So we've planned to do a video called Trans Fat for a long time. Hopefully, eventually we'll make it here now. We used to have a video essay channel, but you people seem to like us talk about that stuff, so maybe we'll make it for here. So that's why I wanted to show the World card for that, because you're like, oh, fat is not queer. No, fat is queer by definition. There's actually a beautiful university book called Queering Fat Bodies. I'll link it down in the description below. It goes into all those overlaps. And then the Ten of Cups is a gender non-conforming couple. Maybe the vision that Matt has of a lesbian couple. Again, I'm starved for representation, I'll take it. So this gives me this tiny bit of diversity with Art Nouveau. Yes, please. I've got 5 copies for a Coven of 2. What's the deal with getting mass markets? I wasn't planning on getting mass markets there because, let's be honest with ourselves, Amazon will always undercut me because they don't need to have anything to cover sometimes the entire cost wholesale of something, because they just aim to become the only reliable source of any kind of item, so that when they've priced everyone else out, they can set prices and everything, and nobody will be there to make competition. So with that in mind, I will try to keep the price of my mass markets as low as possible. However, I don't have Prime delivery, so there's always the postage as well that kind of push me over, but I'll try. Another example of that is the Fifth Spirit Tarot, which is by Charlie Claire Burgess, the author of Radical Tarot, whom I love, notoriously. This is one of the queerest decks that I have. Charlie has clearly a soft spot for Marseille, so a lot of the pips are actually just number of items, as you can tell, which is a bit Marseille, but I still love it, to be fair. This is the same that I was mentioning about the Ethereal Vision. Yes, on Amazon it's gonna cost you less, I think. On Amazon it cost 22 quid, last time that I checked. On a Coven of 2, it's 20 plus postage, so it's going to be like $24.99, $25. I was skeptical about carrying mass markets exactly because I was like, well, people, rightfully, if they can pay less, they should go and pay less. I'm a broke witch, I completely understand. But someone made me notice, actually, some people are very happy to support independent shops if it means not supporting Amazon and if they can afford it. So by all means, feel free. I'll leave the link to those down in the description below. This is actually a deck that I have used to read in person to people. So I've done a couple of tarot workshops here in Cardiff, and I've done an event, Queer Folklore, where I was there with a table reading live to people that wanted their tarot read. And I used these to read to people, and people loved it. Now, admittedly, I go a lot in queer circles here in Cardiff, so probably it was the right kind of audience to go to. See, I think the Fool, actually Charlie, drew themselves, which I absolutely adore, if that's the case. Is that the case? I'd love it to be the case. Yeah, my queer community loved having tarot read with this, and it reads really well, actually. I am always surprised when I do a reading and then a person goes like, oh my god, how did you know? And I was like, I don't know you, but this is what I read in the cards. And most of the time I just read them by, knowledge rather than intuition. And yet it works. So yeah, this is a very, 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 very queer tarot, and I really like it. And you can get it at a Coven of 2. And if you do, thank you so much. I am trying to convince Charlie to let me carry the Game Marseille, which is still like independent or Kickstartery. I've sent them an email. If by any chance you should be here, Charlie, I'd love to carry the Game Marseille. So yeah, let me know if you'd like a distributor in the UK. I would be very, very happy to actually have it on my Etsy shop. I know that a lot of independent artists are hesitant to have Etsy shops carry their stuff. Sometimes because they sell on Etsy themselves, but they sell from like the US or places like that. What I try to do is basically to cut that level of postage and that level of custom for people if there is UK stock. But I've been unfortunately unable to get some decks exactly for that reason. The Noble Moon Tarot is an absolute example of that. I'll put pictures here. It's beautiful. It's collage based on antique pictures, but it is diverse, which for antiquity, it was not that obvious. So it's an absolutely beautiful deck. I have been tempted to have a Shopify website just to carry that deck, but Shopify is incredibly expensive. So yeah, I'm stuck on Etsy at the moment. Check out the Noble Moon though, because it's beautiful. If you can afford it, get it. Should I ever be able to afford it, I will get it. And now we're gonna go in generic decks that I own, actually that we own, because the first one I currently stole from my wife. I got it for her. It's called the Slutist Tarot. No need for introduction there. I think we saw this on a Tarot Tube walkthrough, or actually on a blog post. I'm not quite sure. It's incredibly queer. It's incredibly slut liberating, and I love that. It's incredibly kinky. So if you have seen the last video on sex and kink magic, yeah, this is the kind of thing that we like. And I tried to get it for them, but it's an indie deck and I couldn't find it anywhere, so I was like, shame. Until one day it shows up on Vinted. A lot of my decks actually come from Vinted, so when it came up on Vinted I was like, yes, please, now, yesterday. So I got it for them, and so now they have the Slutist Tarot, which is incredibly, incredibly kink-friendly, queer-friendly, trans-friendly, global majority-friendly, different body shapes-friendly. I love that. So the Slutist Tarot is definitely something to consider for Pride. And whoever says that kink does not belong at Pride does not understand Pride. The Erotic Tarot is also a deck that I lent from my wife, because if you have seen, again, sex, kink, magic and shadow work, they mentioned that they found existential kink at a tantra shop in Glastonbury. This was found at the same shop. They don't necessarily read the tarot in a divinatory sense, but it's a very, very good deck if you want ideas for BDSM scenes and things to do. So if you're thinking about getting ideas for scenes, for punishments or rewards, that's a deck that can be used for that, and that's really nice for that. And also the Chariot tries to be pridey.
It is pride, it's literally pride.
It's literally pride. It is pride. They actually at least have the properly colored flags, which again the Millennial Tarot didn't quite do. So yes, it is a very... Pride is a movement. I'm sorry you did that and I had to do it. I'm sorry, my mind is in the gutter, it really is.
1,000 lashes.
Ooh, I'll get the Venus flogger. It's also quite cheap. Like I think I've seen it around for 14 quid, so yeah, it's a nice thing to have. Right, this is the Queer Witch Tarot, which despite the name is not the modern Witch Tarot, which is I think still just independent. It's black and white, and as the words say, is very queer and very witchy. The peculiar thing about this deck is that this is the very first deck that I got. Raven got it for me 1-2 years before we actually started to practice for one of our anniversaries. I was quite surprised because I was like, oh, tarot, yeah, I've seen tarot, I kind of remember tarot, but I didn't quite know what to do with it. So it sit on a box for like a couple of years before I actually then started to use it. And then when we started to practice, I actually went full throttle, I consecrated this very seriously. And indeed, to this day, it's the most accurate deck that I own. Like any time that I want a proper serious answer on something very important or serious, I go to this and it's yes, it does the job. It is Rider-Waite inspired in the sense that every card is illustrated, but it takes poetic license. Now, the fun thing is, when you first approach tarot, one of the exercises suggested is to just look at the cards before you look up the meanings, just so you can see what the cards suggest to you and how your intuition aligns, if it does, with the supposed meaning of tarot. Yeah, that exercise is suggested to be done on the Rider-Waite because of the symbology of the Rider-Waite. This is vaguely inspired, but it has a lot of licenses. So doing that exercise on this was interesting. I still got like 60% right-ish, so that was fascinating. But yeah, just a little bit of an anecdote there. One of the most beautiful things on this deck for me, though, was that I mentioned before in other videos, the reason why we started to practice a couple of years ago was because my cat Whisker passed away very suddenly, and I didn't take it well at all. So a couple of weeks later, we started to like trying to do spells, try to do divination. And so I did this exercise with this deck about, oh, let's open this deck and let's see what these images make me think of. And this was the first card that came out of the deck. It was ordered in a way that I think had the queens at the last card, not the kings, so the highest card. And the way that I started, this one was the first card out. I didn't know at the time that the Queen of Wands in the Rider-Waite tradition comes with a black cat. So all I saw was that there was a card with a cat. And the only note that I wrote for this was thank you, because it made me feel like sort of Whisker was still around. So I really like this deck. It's still available on Etsy. I'll put the link. This is the My Earth tarot deck in the independent version still. Now there's a mass market as well, which I think is just as nice. But this is kind of unique, and my wife got it for me when it was still rare to be found, so I really like it. It has, look at the all edges that like it is inclusive, it is diverse, and it is extremely colorful. So in a way, it is similar to the Fifth Spirit, but it's much more colorful, and I really like colorfulness. It's kind of my thing. This is so peculiar. The Eight of Wands is actually going right to left. which is not the direction you think as forward in Western societies. Interesting. Yeah, it has a lot of body diversity, of racial diversity, queer, love it. Speaking of queer, look at this Two of Cups, look at it. It's colorful, it's rainbowy, it's loving. I very much like this. I think they got it from Little Red Tarot, which is an online shop that has independent tarot decks indeed. So basically they did what I wanted to do before and better than I do. So check them out. I think they are Welsh based as well, which I really appreciate. Good neighbor witches. Next is my crux and delight, which is the Rosebud Tarot. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen it's one of the hardest decks that I ever tried to work with. But it's so pretty, and I love it so much that I really want things to work out between us, basically. So what I like about this is that it is a collage inspired with very antique pictures, which, again, I adore. And it is also diverse, which, again, with old style pictures, it's rare to find. So this is the Lovers. Bring me that diversity. This is the Devil. Like, yes, I will send you again to the Sex, Kink, Magic and Shadow Work video, because that's the thing about the Devil. I have a very hard time seeing it as a negative card for plenty of reasons. One of them is that is indeed one of the two birth cards of Raven. Their pair is the Devil and the Lovers, and this Devil specifically, like, yes, please. This is the Two of Cups, which is like, you know, the lower version in a way of the Lovers. And again, it's queer in the sense that there are these two people half dressed as brides, half dressed as groom. I can't believe that there was a picture probably in the early 1900s or 1800s that people took like this. It's amazing. Yeah, I kind of love it because of that. It has renamed the cards in a more accessible and slightly less patriarchal way. The chords are called Curiosity, Velocity for Knights, Generosity for Queens, and Sovereignty for Kings. So I like that it naturally breaks the gender binary. The issue with the Rosebud Tarot are these two cards, because these are the only two bigger bodies pictures that are used, and they are used for the Four of Earth, which is the Four of Pentacles, which is greediness, and the Four of Water, which is the Four of Cups, which is apathy or laziness. Using bigger bodies to deliver those two characteristics, it's a very lazy thing, ironically, to do, because the cultural idea of fat people being greedy, like with food and stuff, or fat people being lazy, it's actually something that comes from our idea of racism, which started in around the 1600s with the slave trade. So for further understanding of that, I will send you to Fear in the Black Body by Sabrina Strings, which goes very much into detail with that. But yeah, this was a very simple and poor choice that I do not endorse in this deck. I do wonder if that's the reason why we couldn't talk well. Yeah, when it was just the Four of Pentacles, I thought that it was a one-off. And then I realized that the Four of Cups was the same, and I was like, no, Rosebud, no. A bit too easy, eh? This is the Knight-Waite. It's another collage-inspired deck made by Michelle Knight-Waite. I am genuinely wondering how is it possible that US Games, which I think owns the Rider-Waite-Smith, has not sued. But you know, other than that, it's quite interesting. It mixes old-style pictures with actually current ones, because I think pictures from the Empress and that are actually pictures of Michelle, done like sepia way, but they are modern pictures. But other than that, it is very queer-friendly. It has Oscar Wilde as the King of Swords. It is diverse. It presents images of sort of femme bodies, not necessarily presented in feminine ways, which I very much like, because worse than gender binary is gender expectation put on people. This Two of Cups, to me, is very queer. Then again, twink to me is a gender, so... We have Pamela Colman-Smith as the High Priestess. Pamela Colman-Smith was supposedly, rumor has it, a queer woman and a woman of color, so I'm partially biased. And we have 3 versions of the lovers. We have supposedly the gay version, the C-set version, and lesbian version, which, as you can guess, is kind of my favorite. Like, look how pretty they are in their long gowns, kissing and being nice, and it's incredibly cute. It's a deck that I haven't used a lot yet, but if we're talking about diversity, this kind of delivers. And I think it's relatively cheap as well, like 14 quid. So if you are into collages, it could be a thing. Last, and I won't go too much into this, because who doesn't know the Fyodor Pavlov tarot, really? Actually, I think Sylvie has a beautiful, long, proper video about this. If you are lucky, and I had the patience, I'll put B-roll of a painting, printing that we have of Fyodor in the house, because it's absolutely amazing, and it's not part of the tarot deck, though, it's just one of his paintings. Anyway, it is incredibly, beautifully diverse. It's what you get, thankfully, when the artist is that amazing and that queer. And it has the best lovers ever. I rest my case. Please, YouTube, don't block this video. I think it's a beautiful lovers. It's art. It's very Rider-Waite inspired. So if you are familiar with that kind of aesthetic, this reads the same way quite immediately. Again, how can you genuinely see the devil as a bad card this way? Yes, vice, but also treat yourself. And we'll leave it there. I'll link actually down in the description below the proper full videos exploring the Fyodor Pavlov and the Fifth Spirit, which I think Sylvie did for both. And with this, it's 10. Actually, with the Noble Moon Tarot, which I mentioned, but I don't have, it's 11, so there, you got an extra. As I said at the beginning, I sincerely recommend that you go on Etsy and check out Sylvie, because not only they currently have an offer on their tarot readings, but they have these amazing zines with spreads inside. And again, unfortunately, I don't do them justice because I print them on yellow, because yellow is the main paper that I have in the house, because I'm dyslexic, so I read better on that. So unfortunately, the colors do not deliver half as well as they would on white paper, but still, believe me, they are beautiful. Actually, Sylvie shows them better than me, but I just wanted to mention it because, again, it's my current YouTube crush, and I'd like to do everything to support what they do. I love them intensely. So this was my way to bring a bit of talk on queerness and pride during Pride Month, because it was very ridiculous when I looked at the calendar and realized I am not planning a Pride video on Pride Month. Then again, I am kind of queer every day. That's kind of the thing with us LGBT people. So to me, it's like, oh, I'm supposed to talk to straight people about us today, but I exist every day. Anyway, it's good. Thank you for thinking of us this month. And if you are tempted to fall prey of rainbow capitalism and pinkwashing, don't do that. And if you want to support LGBT people, go to a Coven of 2 and you can support us there. There are the 3 decks there. Or go to check out Sylvie's Etsy shop, because they're queer as well. So yeah, come support us directly rather than rainbow capitalism. How about that? Also, as a final note, because if you're still here, maybe you care about what we think and say, I think it's incredibly ironic that, I don't know if you've heard, in the UK and the US is going to be a voting year. Our general election is going to be on the 4th of July, which means our parliament dissolved on the 31st of May. The last thing that the Tories decided to do, in a move that I think hasn't happened in over 20 years, because basically Parliament, government actually, because it's not a bill, government can decide to overtake doctors. They just decided that for the next 3 months, as an emergency, no doctors, no private doctors can prescribe puberty blockers to new patients. So it doesn't matter that a doctor, knows how to do and how to deal with gender dysphoria. The government has decided that they know better. So if you are a teenager that is about to go through puberty in the wrong direction, tough. The Tories have decided that you need to suffer because they think that they know better than doctors. And I think on the 3rd of June, the first pledge that they did, if they win the election, I think it's also because they know that they're not going to win, so they can be as loud and crazy as they want, is to change the Equality Act, which is the one piece of legislation that helps and support keeping things barely acceptable for LGBT people in the UK. And they pledged that gender will not be a thing considered anymore, only biological sex. And they pledged, therefore, to exclude trans people from single-sex spaces because that's the only thing that matters to them. Which, again, I don't know if it's just me, but I think it's very telling about why we do need pride and why we shouldn't forget that there's a T in LGBT, and legend has it that the first brick at Stonewall was indeed thrown by a trans woman. At this point it's legend because there are different things about it, but I think it's emblematic that we hear the legend and we kind of make sense that the legend is a trans woman through the first brick at Stonewall. And by the way, cops do not belong in Pride. I hope that this video was interesting, if not useful, and until the next video, I hope that we can hex the patriarchy together, because there's a lot of need for it.